Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats weekly podcast episode number 19. This is the world's first podcast. Oh, by the way, I am your host, Dan Matson. I had to say this out of order because it's the same every week. And this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, and tradition of wooden boats of all kinds and sizes and shapes and years and beam and material of wood. Anyway, welcome to the show again, folks. It's great to have you this week. Our featured segment today is an interview with Bud Bronson, Captain Bud Bronson, and Captain Tom Rogers, who head up the Sea Scout program in Tacoma, Washington. And they use a couple big wooden vessels to do it, and it's a fascinating interview, so be sure and stick around for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, let's see. I came up with a new acronym. WBLRS stands for Wooden Boat Lovers or Wibblers. So if I call you a Wibbler, don't be offended, okay? Because I like that word Wibbler. I'm kind of an acronym guy. So welcome to the show, Wibblers. You may hear that again in the future. If you think of a better acronym and a better sound, let me know. But for now, we're going to go with that. Okay, we have a question from a listener, Brian Hansen in Stanwood, Washington. I know Brian well. He's a buddy of mine and calls into the show with questions and things. So take it away, Brian.
Hi, Dan. This is Brian Hansen. I'm calling from Stanwood, Washington. Just listened to your interview on Rivers West down in Portland. I'm just wondering if there are any organizations similar to theirs up here in the Puget Sound area. It sounds like they have a lot of activities going on where people can easily get plugged in and do some boat building. So, anyways, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for that question, Brian. Rivers West, their setup there is a little bit unique in that it's more of a club type of thing where everybody participates and is kind of part of the membership type of thing. There's some similar stuff going on in the Puget Sound area. Of course, the ones that I know about that most people already know about is the Center for Wooden Boats down in Seattle. And you can become a member there. And once you become a member, you can take their small boats out for a modest fee. And they've got sail and row and power boats down there, small boats. They also have classes. I believe they have some shorter classes and some longer classes. Some of the week-long or so classes, you actually build a boat together with some other folks. And there's other things going down there. The third Friday of every month, they have a guest speaker in the evening. That's a lot of fun to go to. And I'm sure there's other activities there too, Brian. So I will post their web address on the blog so you can check that out. And I will actually give it here. I'm going to look it up here real quick. I'll be right back. Their website address is cwb.org. That's the letter cwb.org. If you go there, you can get all kinds of information about their calendar events, their workshops and classes, their boat rentals through the livery, which I love that word livery, kind of like chandlery. It's not real easy to say, but it sounds cool because it's been used for years. And as you probably are aware, Brian, I know you're aware because I've seen you there, they have the facility at Kama Beach on Camino Island also, where they have activities there and so on. And actually on the CWB website, if you click at the top of the homepage, you can go to the Kama Beach link, and that gives you more information about the cabins that are there and the wooden boat program that's going on there. I was trying to click on it here while I'm reaching my computer. Kama Beach is located an hour north of Seattle on Camano Island. It's a fishing resort that was started in the 30s. Really cool place, and the center of that is the wooden boathouse, where they've got all kinds of fun stuff going on. So those are two related to the Center for Wooden Boats. The other one I'm aware of, Brian, is the Anacortes Maritime Community Center. Actually, I didn't get that right. It's Anacortes Community Maritime Center. And their web address is anacortescommunitymaritimeCenter.org. And they've got some cool stuff going on. Anacortes, as you know, is like a half hour from Stanwood. Their mission is to build a community where good friends meet to celebrate, learn, and preserve our rich maritime traditions and explore our connections with the waters of Puget Sound. So they've got some classes, some education. They've got a blog, a photo gallery. They do meetups and boating events. And I've met a few people in that organization, and it looks like a lot of fun. So that might be a cool place for you to get involved also, Brian. Anyway, appreciate your question, and we'll talk to you later. Okay, back to our regular programming, whatever that means. I'd like to connect with you. You can connect with me by emailing me at dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com, or you can go to my website, hookedonwoodenboats.com, not hooked at, hookedonwoodenboats.com. And on the home page on the right-hand side, there's a button you can click to sign up for my email list. All I ask for is your first and last name, your email address, and your waist size. No, I don't ask for that, really. First and last name, email address. And that's a way for me to connect with you personally, email back and forth. I try to send out some special resources once a month, a cool wooden boat video or something like that. And gives us a chance to correspond about boats that you're working on or wooden boat questions you might have. So that's a great way to connect with me. You can also connect on facebook.com/woodenboatdan or twitter.com/woodenboatdan. And Facebook's in the middle of changes again, and I don't totally understand what they're doing, but anyway, I'm there if you look up Wooden Boat Dan, so go for it. So please connect. That would be awesome. The other news I wanted to share was I did pick up my 3 sheets of Okumi 4mm plywood, marine plywood this week to start building my canoe. I'm going to build a 12-foot sassafras canoe out of the Canoe Shop book, so I'm excited to get started on that. I'm actually going to start laying out the panels on the plywood tonight. I ended up getting the Okumi marine plywood from Edensaw in Port Townsend, and I'll put their link on my website too in the blog. They've got great deals, and this particular Okumi I bought is it's not certified to meet the BS 1088 standard, but they say it does. It comes out of, I believe, China, and the guys at Edensaw say it's good stuff, so I'm going to find out. I will keep you posted on my progress there, but anyway, that's pretty exciting. I've got a growing list of wooden boat shows to go to in the Northwest this year. In addition to Port Townsend, which is in September, I plan on going to the Center for Wooden Boats Wooden Boat Festival, which is usually around July 4th weekend. And then I'm also, for the first time, going to go to the Olympia Boat Festival in May down in Olympia, Washington. And next year, I believe not this year, but next year, they'll have the second biannual Wooden Boat Festival on Bainbridge Island, so that should be fun. And I think there's a wooden boat gathering in September on Orcas Island in the San Juans. I forget the name. Actually, I'm going to look real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. It's the Wooden Boat Society of the San Juans, based out of Deer Harbor, on Orcas Island. And it looks like they have an annual wooden boat rendezvous. Last year was their 10th annual, so I'm going to try to get up there for the 11th annual, which I believe that's in September. And if you're listening and you're aware of other boat festivals dedicated to traditional or wooden boats in the Puget Sound area, I'd love to hear about it. Eventually, what I'd like to do on my site is have a calendar with some of these activities on there from around the U.S., and so any information you have there, I would greatly appreciate it if you would send it my way. Dan at hookedonwoodenboats.com. Okay, we're going to our featured segment now, which is an interview I did with Bud Bronson and Tom Rogers, both licensed captains that run the Sea Scout program in Tacoma, Washington. And they do the program on two big wooden vessels. One is a 90-foot wooden sailboat. It's a yawl rig. It's a gorgeous boat built in the 30s. The other boat they use is a 78-foot Coast Guard cutter, wooden, that was built in the 30s also, called the Charles N. Curtis. So anyway, let's get going with the interview. Take it away, guys. Okay, it is January 22nd or 23rd or something like that.
23rd.
And I am in Tacoma, Washington, sitting in the, what do you call this room?
The salon.
This is the salon of the 90-foot Odyssey sailboat that was built in 1938. And I'm here with Bud Bronson and Tom Rogers. Guys, welcome to the show today.
Glad to be here.
Good to have you. And Bud and Tom are both involved with the Sea Scout program, which is part of the Boy Scouts. But before we talk about the Sea Scouts, I'd like to hear from you guys individually about your boating background and wooden boats and that sort of thing. Just give me a little history. Maybe we could start with you, Tom.
My history, I was born and raised in Hawaii, so I've always been on the water. And when we moved to Tacoma, I looked around and got recruited into the program about 50 years ago. That's
50 years ago.
Been ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bud's background's a little more nautical than mine.
Yeah.
I was born in Georgia, and after World War II, we moved to the West Coast, and I got involved in Sea Scouting in San Francisco. And then I went to the Naval Academy and spent 10 years in destroyers and submarines, got out, and started my own naval architecture firm. And one of the guys says, "Hey, we got a big sailboat down here we need some help with." And that was 30 some odd years ago, and I've been with Odyssey for about a little over 30 years.
A little over 30 years. So when did you originally get started in Sea Scout yourself then?
Oh, 50.
When you were in high school?
In high school, 52, 53, somewhere along in there. 52 probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. And Tom, did you do some boating growing up as a kid in Hawaii?
I was always in the water.
Were you? Okay. What kind of boats were you using?
Didn't use boats then. We were always in the water.
Oh, okay. Literally in the water. Right? You were swimming.
Always in the water swimming. That's right.
So what was your first exposure to real wooden boats that you take out and use?
The Curtis, my first exposure.
Okay.
And that's quite a few years ago, and it was quite a bit different in those days.
Yeah.
But, it is much more, almost close to original at that time, other than the aft cabin.
Yeah. Okay. So for our listeners, give us gory details about the Curtis, what the boat was originally intended for, maybe a history of the boat,
Sure.
kind of some about its wooden construction.
The Curtis was built in 1931. It was Newport News, Virginia. It was built to chase the rum runners, and that was towards the end of Prohibition, but for the next 3 years until 1936, it ran in Chesapeake Bay chasing rum runners. Shortly after Prohibition was over, they put her on I have pictures of her putting on a freighter. They shipped her around to the West Coast, and in 1937 she became the Tacoma Coast Guard cutter.
Okay.
We actually have pictures and names of the crew that came aboard. It then continued as a Coast Guard cutter in Tacoma until the start of World War II, and then it was shifted off to the coast between Oregon and Washington as a picket ship out there during the World War II.
What's a picket ship? What is that?
It was actually out there on patrol for submarines.
Oh, okay.
I actually have pictures of it with depth charges on the back. Thank God they never dumped them. They'd
Wow.
probably blown her out of the water. But by 1946, she was surplused, and the scouts picked her up, and they renamed her Charles N. Curtis for the then scouting executive in the council who picked up the boat for them. So we've had the Curtis as a Sea Scout vessel since 1946.
Okay.
It's changed quite a bit, as you noticed over the years. It came into the program with just a small wheelhouse on its main deck, and of course it had a deck gun in those days. Actually, it had several deck guns. But over the years, the needs for servicing more youth was apparent, and the aft cabin was then added. But they left the old wheelhouse up there, so we have some great pictures of the Curtis with the small wheelhouse and this huge deck cabin. It was quite funny looking.
Mm-hmm.
But by 1972, we then took the old wheelhouse off, raised the new one up, and brought it forward so that we could see over the bulwarks. Because in heavy weather, you had to stand and con the ship from out on the bow. Over the years, we've changed. The engines came in. It had Hall Scott engines, actually Vikings, and Hall Scott. They were Sterling Vikings, and they used 100 gallons of gas an hour. So it was something that you didn't want to.
Ooh.
Yeah, something that we didn't want
That's
to
at a
use.
pretty high cruising speed.
Around about 24 to 26 knots.
Really? Which is
And
what the
it's
Coast Guard needed.
Yeah, and it's a semi-planing hull, so it was a fast boat. It only draws 52 inches of water.
Yeah.
So we've added to it over the years to accommodate more and more young people and greater needs by the community for young people. So that's why you've seen the new galley on it. The wardroom's been remodeled since then. The wheelhouse has certainly been changed over the years too. It's an evolution. It's kind of, I call it like the Golden Gate Bridge. By the time I get done with one end, it's time to start on the other end again. And that's really is true.
Yeah, right.
But
right.
the engines were removed. You can actually see the original engines. They're in the old Tacoma Fireboat out in Ruston Way.
Oh.
They were pump engines, and they traded our engines for a couple of Buddhas, and we ran Buddhas up until about 58, and then we had some low box 671s went in, and then over the years we've seen 3 generations of engines today. We're running 671s, but the high blocks, the more modern variety of those.
And 671, is that a Cummins?
It's a Detroit diesel.
Detroit diesel. Okay. Yeah.
And we maintain 2 generators today because we're now an all-electric boat. It's when we're running with 30 people on board, you really need to have the capacity to feed and function.
Yeah. Right.
You're asking about the hull. The hull is basically CVG fur, which is called clear vertical grain fur, and we shop for that almost continuously. We have some places in Western Washington that actually will look for old growth timber for us. And then once it's found, it has to be cut. And once it's cut, then it takes us another 2 to 3 years to air dry it before we can even use it. And we're always doing some planking on the boat. It's kind of a routine process as we work around the boat to make sure that its integrity stays in good condition.
So is that like 1-inch planking on the hull, or
1 3/8.
1 3/8?
Yeah, 1 3/8
That's a
planking.
heavy. And then what about the frames on the boat?
The frames were oak.
Okay.
They were all oak.
Oregon oak, white oak, that type of thing, or?
No, that'd be white oak, yes.
Yeah.
But no, since it was built on the East Coast, it was white oak. And actually, the planking originally was, I think, we can consider it to be CVG fir, but I think it was actually yellow pine. I'm almost
Just kind of a
tempted to believe
related species, is it? or-
it's kind of related. They're very
Yeah.
clear about the same. But since we don't have yellow pine out here and can't obtain it, we use CVG fir.
Yeah. Is Oregon pine similar to white oak? Isn't there a
I don't
species
know.
of? Okay, I
I
was
don't
just
know.
curious about that.
Well, we use many different types of woods on the boat today. Today we can't get large pieces of oak, so instead we use purple heart when we're replacing frames and
Okay.
heavy beams. And on the bow we're using Paduke as a handrail, and tremendous variety on different woods today that we use.
You got to have a sharp blade to cut that purple heart, don't you?
It dulls it right over. That and running it through the planer does wonderful things to it.
Yeah.
We replaced all the steering quadrants last dry dock, and that was with Purple Heart and the original quadrants had gone bad, were failing. And those are big timbers. That was quite some chore. I actually took the side of the boat out and had to reach in and get the members of the beams went all the way across the entire breadth of the ship and pulled them out and put new stanchions. And then
I see.
actually when it got done, I think we did a better job than we did originally.
Who built the boat originally?
It was built in Newport News,
Southern
Southern Shipyards, right?
Southern
Yeah,
Shipyards.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't think they exist today.
I don't think so.
What's comfortable cruising speed for that boat?
11.1.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, it's 11. Well, it's a very narrow, long
It is
hull.
narrow semi-planing, so there's interesting.
We draw 52 inches of water. We're 14 and a half inches wide. So, and those days, the early days, length and width were the defining measurements of speed, because we didn't have the planing hulls and we didn't have the light materials. So,
Yeah.
if you wanted speed, you had a function of width. You're a nautical engineer. It's a function of length and
Long
width.
and narrow.
Long and narrow's good, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how much fuel do you burn at 11 knots?
We run about 11 gallons. About a gallon a mile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's $50 an hour. That's not too
That's
bad.
not too bad. No.
No, not really.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we usually run with large crews. Also,
Yeah.
because we can spread the cost over a much broader base. A weekend cruise for a young person runs between $30 and $35. They go to McDonald's, spend that kind of money. So
Right.
but if we can put 20 or 30 people on board, we can defer that cost and make
Yeah.
it much more cost effective.
Definitely. Cool. Okay, so that's the Curtis, Charles N. Curtis. Bud, tell me about the Odyssey sailing boat. It's a yawl. So give me the history of that boat.
In 1936-37 time frame, a Mrs. Barclay Henry, who loved to sail, commissioned Sparkman and Stevens to design it, and she was built in Nivens Boat Yard in City Island, New York, delivered in September of 38, and she then gave the boat to her husband as a birthday present.
Really?
It's kind of like, you give your wife a lathe because you really wanted a lathe.
Yeah.
Well, she really wanted a sailboat. So
she gave one to her husband?
She gave him a sailboat.
Yeah.
He had two carvings done. If you come down and look in the salon on Odyssey, on either side, you'll see these carvings that tell the story of Homer's Odyssey. And they sailed the boat until early in World War II, when the Navy took it over and used it as a patrol vessel on the East Coast. And at that time, the vessel's name was changed to Saluda, S-A-L-U-D-A. And she was run by the Navy during World War II. At the end of the war, she went up to Woods Hole and did oceanographic research for a short period of time, and then in the 1950 time period, she was moved around and worked out of Scripps down in San Diego for some period of time. Then in the 1980s, she got moved up to Whidbey Island and was being used by the Navy up there for recreation in the early and mid 80s. And I think about the 1987 time frame, she broke her mooring and smashed the stern and broke the boomkin. And so the Navy had two choices: did they want this big sailboat or did they want their golf course? And
Well,
so
was that in a storm at Moorage?
yeah, it's up there on Whidbey Island. She broke loose.
Oh, okay.
And so you understand that most people play golf, and very few of us like big sailboats. So the Navy surplused her, and we bought her for $1.
Wow.
We've had her since 1988.
Wow.
She is double planked, double carvel plank. The inner plank is, again, I think fur, about inch thick fur. Then they did something unusual. They sheathed the hull in canvas and soaked it in white lead. And then over that they put 1.5 inches of mahogany. So she's double planked, fur and mahogany, over oak frame.
With canvas in between.
With canvas in between.
Traditional.
At the bottom of the frames, a lot of times you will find a bronze knee down there that holds it onto the keel, which is a great big, about 12 by 6 foot piece of oak. She has 50,000 pounds of lead on the bottom of the keel. The boat is about 90 feet overall, 62 feet on the waterline, 18-foot beam. The operating draft is roughly 12 feet. Her air draft from waterline to the top of the mast is about 107 feet.
Wow.
And the main mast is a single piece. It's a single mast. It is a laminated Sitka spruce mast that's hollow through about 2/3 of it. The same thing is true of the mizzen. All the spars, the booms, and the staysail club are again laminated Sitka spruce.
Yeah. How do you test the integrity of those masts over time? That of a wooden mast like that, or do
you go around and very carefully with a sharp knife probe in the right places to see whether or not whether there's any rot.
Yeah.
Several years ago, while we're going under the Burlington Northern Bridge in Seattle, they dropped a bridge on it and bounced it on the top of the mast, and we pulled the main mast out and took it down to bare wood. And verified that everything was in good shape, but we found a piece of rot in there, dry rot, replaced that. And one of the fun things that happened was that we had it laying down there, so we got one of these cameras that you run up and down a sewer pipe and looked up and down both sides from the
very cool
from
down the hollow section.
Yeah, through the hollow section, so we could see all the marks and everything. And
looked good inside.
Oh yeah, and one of the curious things is we found at the butt of the mast, down at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of shavings, and they were all pounded down tightly and all like this. And you say, how did shavings get inside a hollow mast? Well, to keep the mast from crushing at the spreaders, there is a bronze pipe that goes through there. So they drilled a hole and put this bronze pipe through, and then that's the compression fitting there so that it won't collapse the mast there. So the shavings fell out, and of course when you stand it up and bounce it up and down for 70 years, why all the chips fall to the bottom. So
I see.
That's why they were there.
Interesting.
Odyssey has a 671 main engine, same as the Curtis, about the same horsepower.
Mm-hmm.
We get about 8.5 or 8 3/4 under power, but we'll do 12.5 to 14 under sail.
Really?
Routinely do 10.5 to 12 under sail. At 12.5 it gets nervous. At 14.5 the crew's on deck and praying. But
so is that really fast for a boat this big? I mean, that seems super fast to me.
14 knots is outrageous.
So
12 is thrilling.
So talk to me about that. How does that happen?
Lots of wind and
just
a full set of sails up.
Wow. You must have huge sail area on this boat.
It's 3,600 square feet or something like that when you can count the main, mizzen, staysail, and Yankee jib.
So there's 4 sails, basically?
There are four working sails. We also have a mizzen staysail, which is about 1,600 square feet, and we have I've forgotten how big the spinnaker is, but we can actually fly a spinnaker also.
Oh my goodness.
And,
wow.
So it's quite a show when we get her out.
Yeah.
But she will routinely do 10 to 11 knots under
wow,
the
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you keep up with the Curtis if you're going the same direction anyway.
We can actually go faster if they're under the right circumstances, but generally they make it faster than we do. Because,
yeah.
We're a sailboat. We kind of wander back and forth across the course to get wherever we're going.
Right. And you were saying you've kept a lot of things original on the boat.
Most of the boat is original. The children's cabin, which used to be a two-person cabin, has been modified now so we can sleep another in there because we've got a co-ed crew. So that's the girls' room, and the boys' room is the 4-man forward, and the adults are back aft in what was the owner's cabin. Mm-hmm. And then at night you end up with people sleeping on everywhere. Cushions and transoms everywhere, and in fact the dinette up in the chart house will make into a bunk which 3 people can sleep in if it's really that cold and wet.
Yeah. So how many people do you take out on a time? How many scouts and crew and?
Well, normally we would sail with 18 youth and 4 adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right.
But we've had as high as 26 on here.
Really? Okay. And the Curtis, you said up to 30?
Well, it depends. I mean, you're chartered for 49.
Well, we can carry 45 in the day mode.
Day
we can
mode,
carry
okay.
we can legally carry 45 people on here as long
And we
as we're
carry
only,
44.
Oh, you do?
only in a day mode. But overnight we generally don't carry more than 20 to 22.
But on week-long cruises, we run between 24 to 26 at a time.
Okay.
And you run, what, 18
18 to 20.
Okay. All right. So I didn't realize that the Sea Scouts were part of the Boy Scouts, and I don't know that much about the Sea Scouts. Might have read some on your site, but for our listeners, could you guys tell us what the Sea Scouts is all about? What you guys are up to, and how long they've been around, and all that?
The Sea Scouts are part of the
99
adventuring.
3/4 years right now.
Really? Okay.
Yes, this is our
Yes, we are.
centennial year.
100
Is it
The
really?
Sea Scouts, that's correct. We're a co-ed program for young men and women ages 14 to 21. And that came about the late 70s, early 80s. It's called part of the Venturing Group. It's one of the few groups in the Boy Scouts where young ladies can get the equivalent of Eagle. It's called the Quartermaster Award. We have our own awards, and that's the ordinary, the apprentice, the ordinary, the able, and the quartermaster, 4 ranks. And those who achieve the quartermaster are achieving the equivalent of Eagle. So it's been around for 100 years, and this year, 2012, will be our celebration year. So we'll invite you.
Cool.
When we get to our celebration here, probably when the weather warms up a little bit.
Yeah.
We think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Tacoma has had Sea Scouts since 1924.
Wow.
Curtis, it was called Ship 110, started in 1924, and we actually have history records that now go back into that, both pictures and other things. They had this last summer, 2011, they opened a time capsule at Camp Kilworth, and we acquired quite a number of films, actually 8mm films, and we put them on disc of what was going on in 1938 or so, whenever they put that in. We've also, over the years, captured a huge amount of pictures of the different programs now. We have quite a nice reservoir of the history of Sea Scouts in Tacoma. So, yeah, we're very pleased to be part of that. Very pleased to be at our new base. We're 5 weeks into this new base, having the Odyssey and the Curtis together, and soon the Verite will be joining us as we get Rangers finished for that. It'll be a real sea base. I think the only one really in the Northwest, other than maybe Portland, Oregon.
Probably too.
What kind of skills are the kids learning on these boats then? What are the main skills that they learn?
The Sea Scout program is laid out similar to the Merchant Marine. In the Merchant Marine, you have apprentice seamen, ordinary seamen, able seamen, and then you have quartermasters who are the navigators and the deck people. And that's kind of where our structure came from. So they're learning seamanship, navigation, woodworking, electrical,
Mechanical.
engine repair, sail making. We had one young man from Odyssey who eventually was down in New Zealand with the America's Cup people as one of their sailmakers. And both programs have had several people through the maritime academies,
Coast Guard.
Coast Guard Academy, and
Navy and military.
Navy, and we've got a young man right now that has sailed with us 2 summers on Odyssey, who's at West Point. We have one of them at
Cal Maritime.
One at Cal Maritime.
Cal Maritime.
We've got one of them at the Coast Guard Academy. You've got Curtis has got
2 at Cal Maritime.
Cal Maritime,
And a 3rd one getting ready to go. So we also are unique within the United States that we are focused. We do focus on rank advancement, and we're turning out probably 10% of the quartermasters in the United States each year out of the 2 programs.
Wow.
And that's pretty special for us.
How many years does it take for a typical kid to make quartermaster?
3 to 4, depending
3 to
on
4.
how much effort they put in it.
Yeah.
But it's there's a lot of sea time involved in it, a lot of extra time. The Curtis and the Odyssey provide a very nice diversity of learning experiences, whereas a lot of the focus on the Odyssey is sailing, which it should be. It's a sailboat. A lot of the focus on the Curtis is mechanical because it's a powerboat.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably more directed towards the navigation and the mechanical, and you're probably more directed towards just learning how to sail, and the teamwork goes associated with that.
And navigation. Both
Navigation.
navigation is vital to both programs, but
Yeah.
yeah, we're much more focused on sailing and them on point to point. So we joke about they go point to point and we wander all over to get there.
Yeah, right. So that if for scouts in the program, would they have time on both of the boats, or just be dedicated to one vessel?
We have some that happens that way. The problem, of course, is the focuses of the two boats are not unique, not totally different, but they do lose if they're trying to be in both programs, because
I see.
as a teenager normally will do, and justifiably, they're going to choose the path of easy resistance. So if the Odyssey's cruising this week, and the heck with the Curtis, I'm going on the Odyssey, and Curtis is next week, and I'm on the Curtis, and heck with the Odyssey.
Yeah.
So, and they lose something in the fact that both programs depend on sweat equity as a major component to the program. We ask and require of our young people to participate in the maintenance of these boats and the pride and character of the boats too.
Yes.
It's very important. You can see the pride in these boats when you see the young people and the boats themselves.
So how many hours a year would a scout spend in the program, either on the water, working on the boat, studying, classwork, all that stuff?
Well, we meet Monday nights and Saturdays.
Okay.
So you're dealing with about 12 hours a week.
Wow.
And that's year round. And rarely do we get a day off.
Yeah.
And
we're
not very far behind.
We're Thursdays and Saturdays.
That is
So
Okay. Yeah.
and we try and do a 3-day weekend once a month. You know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday cruise once a month.
Yeah.
We have work parties and other things. So we average about 130, 140 days a year under sail.
Hmm. Wow, that's a lot.
Well, we're down from 180.
Wow.
But, both programs run that kind of
Yeah.
schedule.
You guys are on the water a lot.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. So tell me about maybe over the years, all the years you've been involved in this. Tom, let's start with you. Give me a couple of the funnest or most interesting or exciting or memorable things that have happened in the program.
Goes as long as my arm, but
Yeah.
I guess one of the funnest things we ever did, years ago, Boeing was looking for a couple of vessels. They wanted to go up and test some new look-down radar. This is years ago. And they decided that the Odyssey and the Curtis should go out and be the Eastern European boats. And
We were the targets.
we were the targets, that's correct. And they were supposed to find us, and we were supposed to hide. And sure enough, we were up by Cattle Point going in, and this terrific storm came up. And a wave caught me coming off of Orcas Island, just laid me right up on the side. And it laid us up enough that the lube oil in the engine aired up, and we shut down the one engine, and we hopped in. We actually worked sideways in through Cattle Point. I wasn't sure which way the waves were coming at that point. The Odyssey was a little bit ahead of us. They lost a boat over the side.
Really?
And they said nuts to that. They weren't going to stop for that boat. But we got into behind Cattle Point, and they laid out their anchor. And this is what Brad knew. I dropped the anchor out, and as the chain went out, I realized it was original. And I said, oh my, this is not in good condition. So we saddled up and tied alongside the Odyssey and put both anchors out and stayed the night. And next morning it was a wonderful opportunity. So we got underway. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. We're going up between San Juan Island and Orcas Island, and the jets found us. Well, the jets came down in those days. They popped right on the water line and hit the sound barrier. And I thought those islands were going to expand and contract. I mean, I can imagine what the people in the islands must have thought at this moment in time. But they finally found us.
Wow. Very fun. How long ago was that, Tom?
Oh, God, that's
25, 30 years ago.
It's got to be at least that many years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There must have been some pretty high seas to hit your boat that hard.
Oh, it did.
How big a wave was that?
I have no idea. The
kind
waves
of a
were coming out of
sneak,
the west, and I was monitoring the west, and this wave had hit the island and come back and built up coming that way. Oh yes, we got bilge water in the overhead
Oh my
in
goodness.
the engine room. It was a good solid boat, but it certainly had my attention.
Yeah. How about you, Bud? It's a memorable experience for you in the program.
Well, the more memorable experiences for me in the program have been the effect on some of the youth, the ones that we've gotten on board that were wandering souls, and we have this wonderful, pretty boat that you have to behave to be able to sail on. So they decided that they would pay attention to our rules and tolerate us for a while so they could play with this pretty boat. And pretty soon they found out that the rules made sense, and we have ones that have wonderful people that have come out of the program, young men and young women who are now great moms and dads. And at the time, we were not quite sure whether we were going to keep them or tie a lead weight to them and drop them over the side. But
yeah, so you really saw some lives transform through this program.
And not all of it is kids who were going to the wrong side, if you would, but just young people that didn't know where they were going to go and had no idea what their future could hold, and they saw here a structure and a society that took care of each other and watched after each other. And
so some of the skills they learned in this program, they could transfer those skills to other areas of life and other occupations and everything, would you say?
One of the activities that each youth is required to participate in Odyssey is to plan a weekend. To plan that weekend, they have to plan the menu, 2.5 days worth of menu.
Wow.
Figure out how to purchase all the food, get somebody to go out, purchase the food. They have to lay out the chart courses for where are we going to go from here to there, what's it going to cost us. They have to price it, they have to purchase it, they have to supervise it, and then they have to come back and report on, did it work the way they thought that it was going to? Afterwards. And along the way they have to actually cook the food. So
wow, what a great experience.
It lets them
really helps them learn to plan.
Learn that when they go to college, maybe they'll live on something other than just mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Character and conduct will go everywhere with them, regardless of what skills they go into, what trade or what profession they may go into.
Yeah.
Character, conduct, the discipline, self-disciplines are fundamental. Then come the skills after that to actually do something. Many of our young people join us not knowing what a hammer is, and not even knowing what some of the basics are. Those are skills that are transferable the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But we have had mayors come out of this program, mayors of Tacoma, we had councilmen come out of this program, we have many business leaders. We really, over the years, have seen a grand number of young people that have done very well in the militaries and academies and our community.
Yeah.
But there are some other good stories about Odyssey. We used to have so many youth in the program that we had a crew week, and then we had enough girls to where we would have a girls week, in which there were moms and girls, and then just two of us guys, because we were the only ones that were licensed skippers. And we would take the boat with just girls. And one summer we left Bedwell Harbor, cleared customs, and started going north, and for 4.5 hours we ran at 10.5 knots under sail, headed north.
This is in Canada.
In Canada.
Yeah.
And the girls were, let's keep going. And we said, no, we've got to find some place to spend the night. But we had 2 or 3 days of just incredible winds and 40 and 50 mile runs a day at 10 to 10.5 knots, 11 knots on a boat like this. And that is a blast.
Oh, yeah. How fun is that? So how high do the winds have to get where you start worrying about having sails up on a boat like this?
Well, I think at probably 15 or 20 knots we would begin to reduce sail.
Yeah.
But remember that this is a sailboat and that the engine is the auxiliary.
Yeah.
So we can sail under any weather conditions.
Just reduce your sail area.
Several years ago, you may recall that we got some really bad storms in February.
Mm-hmm.
And Odyssey was out on a weekend and came out of Quartermaster Harbor across here from the other side out of Vashon Island, came out and I looked up and I said, let's get the sails down. And, but we're having fun. I said, let's get the sails down. And by the time we got the sails down, we had 30 to 50 knot winds.
Wow.
And we were headed north with no engine running at 6.5 knots under bare poles. We wheeled around the corner at Point Robinson, started the engine, snugged up, and spent 8 hours on the anchor while the storm blew out. But we were just flying north.
The weekend before last, when we were in Olympia, and it was snowing out, it was interesting because we could watch the Odyssey came in after us about 4 o'clock. We were watching them on radar. We could actually see the snowstorm coming in behind them.
Oh, really?
And watching it come up, and I'll be darned. Just about the time you guys got to the dock, the wind picked up about 35 knots, and the snow just dumped on you.
Oh, my goodness. So you guys have an ongoing water fight, I hear, between the boats.
Oh, there's a disagreement about who's got the better fire pump and which one can go further. And on any given day, it's one or the other.
And we all claim victory.
Yes.
Regardless of who.
If the boats get close, there's going to be some water
There's got to be some
exchange.
water flying.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So he has one water hose and I have 2. And if I can convince our crew to put one water hose on your one water hose man and keep him occupied, then I get the rest of the boat wet. But I seldom can do that.
Yeah.
Usually we get more water on us than the Odyssey does.
Yeah.
The young man or woman will stand up in the bow with a hose straight up in the air and just soak us.
Oh, funny. So, Tom, you've been doing this for a long time. You don't get paid big bucks to do this. Probably don't get paid anything. You volunteer a lot of time and energy. Why do you do this?
Oh, it's a wonderful opportunity for young people. We give back to the community. It makes a difference in the community. That's what we do this for, because we're investing in this community. It's that simple. No more complicated than that.
How about you, Bud? Why do you do it?
Pretty much the same thing. I've been sailing all my life. When I graduated from the Naval Academy, I had more hours and miles under sail than I had under steam because I had done ocean racing there. So
Wow.
I like big sailboats and I like teenagers, and I realize that's a questionable feature these days to admit that you like teenagers, but I really like them.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a great way to give back to the community. Most people don't realize how much Tom Rogers has given to this community. He is the driving factor in the Sea Scouts in Tacoma, and it's his efforts that we're sitting at this new pier, this new facility, this new sea base for us, because he's worked and put a lot of heart and soul in it for the last 10 years.
Let's see, the pay's not good, but the hours are long.
Oh, yes. Oh, wonderfully long hours.
You work half days, which is 12 hours a day, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're down to half days. Only
Yeah.
12.
Correct.
Yeah, very
That's
cool.
too close to the truth, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you guys have some contact information you could give us if somebody wanted to email or go to the website? What would they do?
The easiest one is just to give us a call at the center. It's
Okay, what's the phone number?
253-572-2666. And we're almost always here, or we can't, we'll take a message.
Okay. And then,
Both programs have websites.
yeah, so what are the website addresses?
Well, Odyssey is ssssodyssey.org.
And Curtis is one word, CharlesNCurtis.com.
CharlesNCurtis.com. Okay, so for our listeners, I'll put those on the website so people can look at those too. And so we're going to wrap it up here. Any parting comments for our listeners, Tom? Anything else you'd like to say?
Thank you for joining us. We're very much appreciative of being down here, and we really do enjoy having young people in the program.
Cool. All right. How about you, Bud?
Thanks for coming down.
Okay.
You're always welcome to come down and sail with us even.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thursday nights.
I might take you up on that.
Thursday
Definitely.
nights.
Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank
we'll
you.
be talking soon. I hope you enjoyed that interview. Thanks again, Tom and Bud, for taking the time to meet with me and tell your story and give me a private tour of your 2 wooden vessels. That was a lot of fun. And to my listeners, I am going to get more strategic this year on my website on improving that and adding resources and features that'll make it easier to use and give you more information about wooden boats and generally try to improve things. So also, I'd really appreciate it if you would connect with me, email or my voicemail feedback hotline at 261-2360. I'd love to hear from you. Send me pictures of your boats. Let's get some discussion going. It's always a lot of fun to do that. And I hope you have a great week this week. Keep the sunny side up and the barnacled side down. This is Wooden Boat Dan, over and out. Have a great week. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.